Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Blues Footy Live here on Blue Abroad. Do not adjust your sets. It is your host, Jono Baruch, filling in for Jed Zetzer, who is still recovering from a big weekend up on the Gold Coast. But we're here. The show goes on. Joining me, as usual, is Harrison Hymans, one of the voices for Blues Footy. Bolt, how you doing?
Good to see you, Jono. A very bit of a like-for-like replacement, I must add, as well. Which we're happy with there. He is the great man, so he is alive.
He is alive. He is in the comments.
You've taken the green vest off. The sub has been activated.
Yeah, I'm the medical sub filling in, and hopefully I do a good job. Plenty to talk about tonight when it comes to our footy club, and we're back in the season. We've got a couple of wins on the board, and things are feeling pretty good at the moment.
No, 100%. It's always good to even the ledger up. And I guess the opportunity now is to get into the positive win-loss ratio. A positive win-loss for, I think, the first time since like round 11, 2016. I'm sure you'll be able to correct me if that's wrong. But no, it's a big opportunity for us. The next fortnight, Port Adelaide and Brisbane both at home. So, I feel like, for the sake of our season, we probably have to pinch one of them.
Yeah, 100%. It's a massive fortnight, a massive month actually coming up. But just to sort of wrap up the final game, we were both up there on the Gold Coast watching a scrappy win, but the boys, they did get the job done. Just the final word to rubber stamp that Gold Coast game. What were a couple of your big takeaways from that game?
It was ugly. It was a very hard watch, but at the end of the day, to win any game away from home and to win any game when we honestly played at like 50% of what we're capable of. As in, I just think to win on the road, to grind out a win, we were very, we kind of saw out the last 5-6 minutes really professionally as well. We didn't really give them a look in. So you got to take it. But we reset and back at the MCG where I think we play really good football. So I'm pretty excited for this week, to be honest. I think it'll be a great game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important for the group because I think 12 to 18 months ago to be in that position where we were at three-quarter time, I think there was only a point of difference. We were saying in the stands, we've seen how this ends before, and I think it's a real sign of how much this group has matured that they were able to effectively dominate the last quarter, albeit some really wayward kicking, but they just really got the job done in the end and did what they needed to do.
No, 100%. And I think, and you're right, because we had seen that before. I think we were 14 points up with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter and they dragged it back a little bit at the end. So off a couple of blatant turnovers. So, it was very important we won. We get to 2-2. We're back on par. And now, this month is massive because I think following, the two tough games are Essendon and the Western Bulldogs. So and then Melbourne. So it's a big fight. It doesn't get any easier. So we just got to be switched on. And I think, a game like this week where, the opposition's a little bit depleted, we're on our home deck, it's a big opportunity.
Opposition is a little bit depleted. And don't forget, Blue Baggers, keep chucking your comments in. We will get to them. We will flash them up on the screen for any questions and any discussion points. But Harrison, you talk about the opposition being a bit depleted. We've been a bit pillaged when it comes to injuries at the moment, with updates during the week with Austin McDonald with a back issue, Jack Silvani. We saw him go down after that massive tackle on Jack Bowes in that fourth quarter, which ultimately won us the game. Yep. And learning tonight as well that Zach Fisher will be going in for surgery to, properly clean up the ankle issue. It's really exposing a lot of depth into the senior side at the moment.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think I mentioned it during the week. It's just we're getting injuries to really bad players to get injuries, too. Just really important goal sense, crafty type of players ahead of the ball that we haven't really had for a long time. So yeah, Silvani's definitely a big out. As in Silvani was massive against the Dockers and, without getting a lot of the footy on Saturday night, I still think he was important. But, I suspect McGovern will come in and will, play a bit taller, given how tall Port Adelaide are behind the footy. And then Zach Fisher, the fact that he's been delayed is a terrible loss as well. And I think Oscar McDonald, in terms of the sense where he's probably the direct competition to the out-of-form Casbolt, is definitely, an omission worth noting because Yeah, they're just three big losses. Even though with McDonald, I know he's not playing, but it's just it's that secondary option which is where it's a loss. It's that depth.
Yeah, well, we will get to team changes and matchups a little bit later in the show, but I wanted to ask you, and I wanted to ask everyone else out there, is it a good thing that obviously it's not a good thing to get injuries anywhere, but would you rather have all these injuries now and expose all the depth at the top level now to see what they can do, so when they are called upon later in the year and we are gunning for that final spot, we've seen and we know what they are capable of?
I guess in one sense, but it's more of the fact you think we're good enough to use that depth and still remain relevant in the season. As in, can that depth take us to 6-6, to 7-7, to 9-8, or does it get you to 7-10 and you're kind of on the canvas a little? It just depends. As in, I guess I'd prefer not to use it, to be honest. All at once. As you want your best players out there. Obviously, the reality of any football season is you're going to get injuries, which we completely understand. And I think our top 27, 28 players are all. I don't think there's a heap of difference between player 18 and 28, to be perfectly honest. It's just we've probably tapped into further down that chain in multiple positions. So it's an interesting one. What do you reckon?
Well, it's an interesting one. I'm personally in the camp that as much as we don't want to have the injuries, I think it's great that we're seeing what some players are doing now. So we're seeing the likes of Cottrell in the team now. Well, there's a few murmurs that there might be a debutant this week in a Sam Ramsey, and we're hearing of players in the twos that are pushing up and hopefully will get their chance. And I think now if we look at it, if we want to see what these players can do at the top level and if they can stand up to AFL level football when they are called upon later in the year, we know that we can bring them in, and it can almost be that soldier in, soldier out system-based game plan instead of just relying on the individual.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. And I think just back to Bryce's comment in terms of Andrew Russell, I think, a lot of it's hard. As in, I guess not being within the four walls of the club, we don't know what goes on. Like Andrew Russell's one of the most highly regarded people in his profession. So I think sometimes it's all well and good to look at him, but he's not the one. And I know Jed's big on this as well. But Andrew Russell's not the one actually executing the program set out for him. So there's got to be it's a two-way thing. These injuries, but a lot of them are unlucky, I guess. But it's those recurring ones that are frustrating.
Yeah, it's important to note as well that a lot of these injuries are collision injuries, like Martin PCL, collision, Marchbank, unfortunately, ACL. That's not a conditioning. That's not a conditioning thing, but it's one of these things. So we will jump ahead to the game on Saturday night, where 2-2, both teams coming off pretty gritty wins on the weekend. But I want to ask, before we dive into the matchups, what does this game on Saturday night mean? And it's a question for you, and it's a question for everyone out there at home. What does this game against Port Adelaide on Saturday night at the MCG mean for this football club, for where we're at the moment?
Well, for me, it means one thing, whether we're legitimate or not, really. If you get blown out of the water on your home deck, you're probably, not ready to mix it with the big boys yet. As in, if we want to play finals, we've got to win 12 to 13 games. You can't just beat everyone below you. You've got to win games like this. And what better way to do it? Off a depleted Port Adelaide after a hard game at the MCG. When's the last time Port Adelaide would have played at the MCG? It'd be over nearly 2 years, over 18 months.
I saw something today. I think it's round 16, 2019. That
there you
was
go.
The last time that they played at the MCG. So it's been a really long time for them. For me, it's simple. I think if we're going to, if we're going to prove that we're legitimate at all this year, that this is a statement night. It's the night that we come out, and I think it's the same mantra as the last couple of weeks: just win. And I think that's going to be. I think that's going to be the mantra for the rest of the season, where it's like, okay, we're done seeing the development. True, you might come up against someone like a Richmond or a Geelong who, okay, we beat Geelong last year and they haven't started the year all too flash at the moment, that you'd probably say that they're in a class above where we are. But let's also remember what happened last year. We were right with Port Adelaide, and it was only a Robbie Gray kick after the siren that separated us.
Yeah, thank God I'm going to the game, because that goal is going to be shown all over that broadcast. Don't need to see that again. But no, I agree. We were brilliant against Port Adelaide last year. I know we lost the game, but we were brilliant. It was just a couple of, haphazard decisions late. But I think this week, there's no reason why. I think we match up really well against them, because I think we're going to, if we play McGovern, we'll both have, the three talls at both ends of the ground. So I think, for me, and they're not the quickest midfield either, Port Adelaide, and nor are we. So I just think the matchup suits us, and it is, we have to, if we can get ahead on the win-loss ratio, I know it's round 5, but you've almost got to think, if you want to play finals, you got to treat each win as one step closer, really.
Yeah, 100%. You need to bank wins early, particularly on your home deck against a travelling team. But I want to hear what everyone at home thinks about this. What does Saturday night mean for you as we move into the next discussion point here regarding some matchups? And we've spoken a little bit about this earlier. They've got some big players. We've got some big players. We've got some big forwards. They've got some big forwards. Charlie Dixon, as much as he didn't kick straight, he almost terrorized us last time we played them up at the Gabba. Who's going to get the job on Big Charlie, and who's going to go to the likes of Georgiadis?
So I think Wiedering will be the matchup for Dixon. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Jones started on him last year. Does that sound right?
I think Jones played on him for most of the game.
Yeah. So no, I think Wiedering will definitely get the number one forward, being Dixon. I think Parks will get Georgiades, and then I think Jones will get that resting ruckman, whether it's the Laddams or the Marshall or whichever combination, or the Lysette or whoever is drifting down there. I think that's how they'll probably work.
Do you think they'll give Jones the ability to do what he's done the last couple of weeks, and that just float around and be that intercept marker and chopping everything off?
100%, because we look so much better when he does it. As in, Jones had a really poor first 2 weeks, and that's because he probably had to, not necessarily, he just had to, defend a little bit more. He wasn't, chopping off. He wasn't, having his usual impact across half back. And, the last 2 weeks he's been controlling, every single entry coming in. And we know Jones is erratic with the footy, but, as long as he's defending well, we're a better team. So I think if we can get Jones on the resting ruckman, Wiedering onto Dixon, Parks onto Georgiades, and then Plowman will take the most dangerous small, whether that be Fantasia or Rosie or Robbie Gray at the time. There's a lot of them running around Motlop. So, we're going to have our work cut out for us down back. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive job for our backline. But in terms of those small forwards, who would we be wanting to put the most time into? Obviously, Robbie Gray has the ability to go into the midfield, and we know what he can do. But is it more worth our time putting the work into someone like a Rosie or a Fantasia, or is it just knowing what Robbie Gray can do that we're putting all that work into him and using a Plowman on someone as dangerous as Robbie Gray?
Well, yeah. Well, the thing with last year's game was, I know he kicked the goal after the siren, which obviously all the attention was on Robbie Gray, but Plowman killed Gray last year, absolutely slaughtered him. I know he kicked the goal, so Gray gets the headlines, but Plowman was unbelievable on Gray last year. So I'm happy for Plowman to get that job again, and then they'll swap, the Petreski Sedans of the world, and I'm missing the other back pocket, Petreski Sedan, and then, guys like Doherty will be running through, on your Motlops and your Fantasias and your Rosies, because they're all going to, they all, shift into, Rosie plays a little bit higher up sometimes. I know he was a bit hampered last week, so he was deeper. But I'm confident Petreski Sedan will take Rosie.
Yeah, so Huey Jenko's actually written in a question here. Thanks, Huey. He's asked SPS, who does he take? I think he'll either go to one of, I actually think he'll go to Stephen Motlop. I think he's the floater of that forward line who usually gets about the 5th or 6th defender who can pop up and can produce some moments.
Yep. No, that's fair enough. Well, I just think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting because I think we know Butters is another, forward player that's not going to be playing. Then the Sard's the other one I couldn't think of. So Saad's Saad will probably take that forward pocket that probably plays the highest up the ground, which I think they're going to run through, a lot of them all day. I think Saad, Petreski, Seaton, whoever Doherty's going to, the rotation.
Moving to the other end of the ground, we're looking to bring in. We've got a couple of big boys up there, but they've got a couple of big guys down there. If you needed to go your matchups for Jonas, Alir, and Tom Clory, who do you think's going to get the big job on Harry Mackay?
Well, I actually think this is going to be one of the most exciting matchups of the season, Alir on Mackay. I think that is just going to be a brilliant matchup to watch. And I think it's the matchup that we'll get, Alir on Mackay. And then I think Clory goes Casbolt and Jonas goes that sweeper. It's a bit like how we're going to utilise Jones, that sweeper / McGovern. Because
the way that McGovern played last year before he got injured, he was trying to get up the ground and going between the arcs. And I think that's the way that Tom Jonas wants to play as well. So that might play into his hands.
And that was also the issue, because I think we almost got that matchup last year because McGovern played that game, but because McGovern would go up the ground, it would almost leave Jonas so exposed down back. Because remember, Jonas in that last quarter literally ate the ball the entire last quarter. He took
the mark for that final play, which won them the game.
Yeah, he dominated Jonas. So I think that's what they'll get. I think the Jonas, McGovern, Alir Mackay, and Clory, Casbolt. And then, it'll be interesting. And then in terms of bets, it might be a Darcy Byrne-Jones, or, that's probably the matchup.
Interesting one with Eddie Betts. He played, I think he played quite well last week on the Gold Coast. Small returns, only one goal, but his pressure was up and he just makes things happen. Should he stay in the team, or should he make way for someone like potentially a Sam Ramsey or a Josh Honey, or one of these guys coming from underneath him?
No, I'm definitely comfortable for Betts to keep his spot. I think without getting a lot of the footy, I think Betts, we looked better with Betts around the ball. Betts is very good at just keeping the ball in spots where we need to keep it. He's very good at just hacking it forward a bit. I think Betts is dangerous. Betts creates danger. He gets, opposition will be on alert when Betts is around the footy. And I think if Betts can, force Darcy Byrne-Jones to play a way more restrictive role, then that's a win for us, really.
We'll transition this conversation into the team changes now. Now, Blue Baggers, remember, drop your suggested team changes in the comments below. But a question from Bryce, and I think it's a good one because it might be a matchup to potentially combat one of those tall forwards, maybe like a Clory. Will Bam Bam Matthew Kennedy play for Jack Silvani and be that pseudo third tall, can go into that midfield?
It's definitely an option because we've seen it in the past. Definitely at the back end of 2019, Kennedy played that third tall. I think for us, we've got to match the height, and we've got to go McGovern I'd go McGovern for Silvani, and dare I say Williams for Dow.
Very, very interesting. Well, there's plenty of murmurs around that there might be a debutant this week in Sam Ramsey, who's played a couple of very good games now in the twos together. What type of things do you think he'll be able to bring to the team if he is selected?
Well, I guess the one big thing that we want from every debutant's energy. And the D word.
It's been mentioned.
Yeah, that's the last we'll speak of it. But I think what Ramsey will bring is energy. And, you got to think someone like Sam Ramsey, he's, at the end of the day, he's battling for his footy career, really. It's his second year. He hasn't played yet. If that's what Ramsey will bring. He'll just bring desperation. He'll bring effort around the forward line. So maybe they will rest Betts, or maybe it's Setterfield that drops, or, Dow's the other one that might get dropped. It's going to be very interesting, for me, it's McGovern for Silvani, though. And obviously, it looks like Williams will be available. And, as the Torpedo King says, it's a nice name.
Yeah.
If Williams is available, he comes straight in for Dow.
Yeah, I think that's a non-negotiable, that if Williams is fit, he comes straight in. But let's see what some of these guys think. Matthew Gear suggesting that Kennedy's the medical sub again, which I don't mind. He can play that versatile role. He can go
Yep.
up forward. He can be in the middle of the ground. Lockie Bright has written in, sorry, Lockie, I'll get to your comment now, out Jay Sostow in Gov Kennedy.
Yeah, well, I think if Williams is available, he plays. It's weird, Kennedy, he's such an interesting one. He's one of those players that when he's not playing, you almost want him in, but when he's playing, you don't want him in. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
because he's got such
whole. It's been like that his whole Carlton career. I think it's almost like he almost does some really good things that you want him in, but he gets up to the top level and it's like,
It's almost because like he's got really good attributes and he's a really good size, but it's like he gets to the level and it's like he's just okay at everything. There's always going to be someone better in one category than what he is. Do you get what I mean? And I think that's why he's a fringe player at Carlton, Matt Kennedy. So he's a great depth player to have. Don't get me, because it's not the end of the world if Matt Kennedy has to come in.
Made an impact when he came on last week.
Yeah, he brought effort. He brought energy, intensity. That's what he brings, intensity around the footy as well. And he played really well against Port Adelaide last time from memory. So it'll be interesting. But I think if Williams is available, Williams will come straight back in because, they've got contested ball beasts in their Wines and Boak. They are just, extraordinary what they do. Who knows if Rockcliffe's going to come back into that team.
But Pal Pepper might be available too.
Pal Pepper.
It's a big midfield. So what do we think? Who might get the job on one of those big midfielders, and who do we need to clamp? Who's the key for Port Adelaide who do we need to stop?
Oh, for me, it's Travis Boak. They are a machine when he's up and running. So I think it'll be Ed Curnow minding him. It won't be a hard tag at first, but he'll definitely be minding him around stoppages. I think both clubs will be happy to let Cripps and Wines go at each other around the footy. And then there's, their wingers are good as well. So I think they'll go head to head, Houston and Amon, Cottrell, Nunes. I'm happy for that to go. As Matt G has said, Ed Curnow and Boak should be the way to go, I reckon.
Yeah, I think Carl Amon's a player that we really need to put a little bit of time into. You saw him last week against Richmond. He was really setting up all their plays from that wing role, pushing forward. And Dan Houston hasn't he come on quite a bit since he was taken in the rookie draft from memory. He is really performing. But let's talk about that a little bit more, shall we? I think they've got weapons all over the ground, particularly in their mid to forward half, and it's going to be a challenge for us.
Yep, no, it will be. They're a great team. They were top the whole of last year. They lost the prelim by a goal. So they are almost, if they're not the benchmark, they're right there. It's going to be very interesting. That's an interesting from Todd. Yeah, and I could handle that as well. Sometimes you got to honour form, and Setterfield's form hasn't been where it's needed. I'm a big Setterfield fan, but his form probably vindicates an omission, really.
In defence of Setterfield, they haven't really been playing him in his preferred position.
They haven't. But, we saw Zach Fisher last year go back to the twos, hone in on his craft as a small forward. And,
but does he have the strength to make it
he's
on the wing?
great. I'm not sure. I don't like Setterfield on the wing, personally. I was a big fan of Setterfield up around the footy last year. It's disappointed me what's happened with Setterfield, but, at the end of the day, if that's where they're going to play him, then, Kennedy's output in that position might be greater than Setterfield's at the moment. So I could handle that change. I'm not sure if they'll make it, but I could handle it.
Yeah, something tells me I don't think that they'll make it. I agree with Tony here that he's a bit too slow to be playing on the wing, and we want to hone in on his assets, which is his contested ball. We saw last week against Gold Coast, he was directly involved in 3 centre clearance chains out of the middle of the ground, and they led to a couple of different scores. So I think we definitely need to cash in on his ball winning ability, which he showed towards the end of last year, that he can definitely be a player for us.
Yeah, that's an interesting call by Nick as well, because we know he was crooked the week before, so it's not a bad call in terms of common sense. I like when Carlson used common sense. It's been a rarity in the new millennium, but it's a Yeah, I know. That's a great call though, Nick. I didn't think about that at the time. Yeah, they're both slow. Yeah, they're both slow. They're bulldozers. Matt Kennedy. Matt Kennedy's good at a lot of things. He's really good overhead. He's really good at extracting the ball. We know he would have been good on Saturday night. Those slippery, dewy conditions because he played some really good games at Metricon last year whilst we were in the hub.
He almost became a wet track specialist last year, Matt Kennedy.
He really did. But yeah, he is horrifically slow.
What's the weather in Melbourne on Saturday night?
I don't think there's rain predicted at the moment. I'll just quickly have a look. We're looking at 17 and sun cloud, so no rain at the moment. So it'll be a picturesque,
perfect night for footy, which means. Just one question that I have on. Obviously, we've got a lot of players on our injury list now, but we're looking to get some back in the next few weeks. So a lot of them coming back towards the middle to later part of the year. If we want to have a serious crack at the finals, what do we need to be at the bye? Would you say at least 6 and 6, like at the barest of minimums? And that's a question to everyone as well.
At the barest of minimum, 6 and 6. So let me just have a look at the draw. So I feel like we've got to win one of the next two. We really do. And then, 6 and 6. Yeah, at the minimum, 6 and 6. Because even if you're 5 and 7, it means you've really got to end your year going like 8 and 2 almost.
Yeah, the Torpedo King has written 7 and 5, which
7 and 5 are in a great position.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility either. Like we've seen that we can play some great footy and really turn it on, and hopefully we get our best 22 players back. I want to go back to this comment from Joe, and it's a big thing that he said he wanted consistency in the 22. Well, it's hard at the moment when we're having all these injuries to us, but it's a really good point. We need to try maintain the same 22 and building that synergy of all those players playing together.
Yep, I agree. And I think we've been trying for a bit of stability, but I think, McGovern's going to be a player that's probably going to get back into the 22 eventually without, McDonald or Curnow being available. So I'd rather get McGovern in now. He's played 2 weeks in the Rezzies. So it's definitely time for McGovern. Aiden Full would be great. Aiden Full would be marvellous. But in terms of the consistency, and I think even like Dow, Dow's had a month where he's played in the teams. We didn't see him for a week or two. We've been able to judge him now over the first 4 weeks of the season, and whether we think his form's up to it or not is for the audience to decide, I guess. But I do like consistency in the 22. We've seen what the Bulldogs have done. There's a couple of schleppers who have been playing at the Bulldogs now they haven't missed a game for the last for the last 4 weeks. And, it's just they keep the same 22 going because it works. So I do like the concept of it.
And that's why we've seen the Richmond system work so well, because they've just got players that come in and know their role. It's important. I think it's in place where we need to get to as well. And I think we're seeing it now with the likes of Matthew Cottrell coming in and playing on the wing, Luke Parks coming in and playing in defence and really holding his own and holding his spot. And when the likes of Nick Newman comes back into this side as well, it's only going to make our depth and overall team stronger.
Yeah, we have to honour form. At the end of the day, we have to honour form. So whether you're a 2nd, 3rd, 4th year player, or whether you're a 13th year player, we're in a position where if we want to play finals, we can't be accepting mediocrity anymore. We have to pick the best 22 based on the 22 we think is going to win the game, not the 22 we think is going to be the best 22 for 4 years down the track. That's how we have to pick the team.
So I'll leave you with this final question from Max Klein. I know we don't have another player to take his place in the ruck, but Levi needs to go. What do we need to see from him on Saturday night?
In an ideal world, he would go, really, because his form hasn't justified selection. But with Casbolt, we just need to see, marks. Be a genuine presence ahead of the ball. Be a genuine target and kick some goals, man. I don't think he's kicked multiple goals in a game yet. Casbolt's
only 2 goals for the year. Kicked the first goal of the season and 1 goal last week.
Yeah, exactly. It's just... And we saw last week, Mackay was, shut down and still managed to kick a couple of goals. But, if Mackay's, taken out of the game against an opposition like this, we're not going to win the game like we did last week with Casbolt playing like that. So we just need Casbolt to stand up a bit.
Well, it's certainly going to be a big team effort against the might of Port Adelaide, who are a top 4 team. They are one of the premiership favourites on Saturday night. Blue Baggers, let's all get to the G and really cheer them on. Bolt, you'll be there?
I'll be there Saturday night. Very keen.
Loud and proud. And guys, thank you all for tuning in. Jed will be back next week. Let's go Blues. And until then, let's keep supporting all the lads as much as we can.
Go Blues.